Okay, so joining us in Davos over the next 1 hour will be leading voices of Indian industry, political analysts and also ministers from the Modi Sarkar. What I want to do first on the Mood of the Nation opinion poll is bring you data on how respondents in this India Today Karvi Insights opinion poll assess the performance of Prime Minister Modi. So here it is. 20% of the respondents thinking that the Prime Minister's performance has been outstanding, 41% thinking his performance has been good, 25% rating him as average, 9% saying he's been poor, 4% saying he's been very poor. The next question was about the Prime Minister's style of functioning. When asked this, 1/4 of the respondents, that's 26%, said he's all talk, no action. 20% felt he adds character to leadership. 20% said he's not afraid of taking risks. 9% thought he was pro-poor. And only 6% felt he believes in Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, which is one of the key drivers for Prime Minister Modi and one of his main campaign themes. On the question of what is his biggest achievement, 17% thought that the Swachh Bharat campaign is Prime Minister Modi's biggest achievement. 17% thought it was the crackdown on black money. 14% felt it was a corruption-free government which was his main achievement. 14% thought it was demonetization and 11% felt GST implementation was his big success. The next data set I want to put out before you is about the Prime Minister's biggest failure. Here, 23% felt price rise was a big failure, 22% saying lack of jobs was a big failure, 15% felt farmer suicides is a big failure, agrarian crisis at 11% and cross-border terror at 10%. I want to introduce you now to the guests joining us for the first part of our broadcast. Rajan Bharti Mittal is with us, also Samir Saran from the Observer Research Foundation. I want to ask Samir, your initial reactions on the Prime Minister's report card. Not many think he's outstanding, but there are enough who think he's doing well. So net, the Prime Minister seems to have passed.
Yeah, he seems to be doing well, certainly in the polls, and he seems to have done well at Davos. Right. I think, but what Gujarat would tell you and what certain other election results may indicate from the past, that these polls tend to not really reflect the polling day mood. And I think there is still a year to go, a year and a half to go, depending on if they pull the elections early. And this may change. The mood may change. At Davos, he has done well. So if he were to take this poll here, he would probably get higher approval ratings.
Mr. Mittal, your sense of the Prime Minister's performance almost 4 years into his first term in office?
I think it's almost 4 years as we see in his first term in office. He has been an outstanding leader. A leader who's been able to take some hard decisions. A leader who is willing to take the challenge. And I think from the corporate world, we would say that his performance has been more outstanding. You got the structural reforms done, which was long pending. And he and his ministers, some of his colleagues who have put this together, have taken that bold gamble to go through it. Be it demonetization, be it GST. If you see the indices, inflation is under control, fiscal deficit is under control. Things are looking for India, more investments are coming in. And as you heard Saran saying, in Davos, he charmed the investors, he spoke like a statesman. He also told that India is ready for business.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, just to quickly add to that, I was not present in the room, but I am told when he met the global CEOs here, he actually got a standing ovation on his way out. So, I think he was able to connect to that. He was able to let them know that India is ready for business. That was the hashtag. But I think more importantly, there is now another product in the market. I think we were ceding too much space to our neighbor. There was only one destination in the world. Everyone was wanting to be invested in the China story. I think we had to send the message that we are ready to now engage with the world in a more wholesome manner, and I think he was able to do that. But again, we have to be cautious that Davos is not Delhi and Davos is not a village in the hinterlands of India, and therefore there is a disconnect between what happens here and what happens in Delhi. Sorry, one more thing, and I think what is good now with the current administration is that they've taken some tough decisions, as Mr. Mittal was mentioning, and I think maybe he may not reap the benefits of those decisions because the GST act was just recently enacted, but on a long term, this is good for the country. So I think short-termism, linking every decision to election outcomes is bad decision, is bad politics. And I think creating long-term basis for sustainable change is good politics. And I think some of that has been good in the recent past.
Okay, so the one key question, of course, is that what would happen if elections are held today? Who would come back to power and what would the new Lok Sabha look like? So I want to take you across to the newsroom. We've got Shiv Arur and he's now going to show us what the new Lok Sabha could look like if elections are held today in India.
Well, what if elections happened right this time, but the alliances were a little different? What if, for instance, the Samajwadi Party, the Bahujan Samaj Party of Mayawati and the Trinamool Congress of Mamata Banerjee had allied with the UPA government like they have in the past? Then what would things look like? Here's the seat share in that scenario. The NDA under Prime Minister Modi would get 258 seats in this scenario. The UPA would get a much higher number with 202 and others would get 83. And here's what the vote share numbers would look like in scenario 2 under this new configuration with the TMC, the BSP and the SP allying with the UPA. In that case, the vote share would be 40% with the NDA under Prime Minister Modi. UPA would get about 38% and the others would have to be happy with 22%. Well, here's what things would look like if elections happened right this minute. How would the seats and the votes actually fall? Take a look at these numbers as part of the Mood of the Nation poll. The NDA, led by Prime Minister Modi, would bag 309 of the seats in the Lok Sabha. The UPA would bag only about 102 and the other parties would manage to get about 132. Remember, that is if elections happened right this minute with everything and all the alliances configured the way they actually are. So if they happened right this minute, here's what the vote share numbers would actually look like. It would fall down to about 40% for the NDA led by the BJP under Prime Minister Modi, 27% for the UPA and 33% for the others.
So the key very clearly is whether the opposition can come together against Narendra Modi, Samir, because if they do, then the NDA slips below the majority figure. If they don't, Narendra Modi is romping home in style.
So his personal approval rating is still high. It's at 53. It has gone down a notch. And next elections will be based on the political formulation, how parties align together. I think you saw a bit of that in Gujarat as well. If you can put together a coalition that can, in a sense, eat into some of the vote bank that has been going his way in the recent past, you could see a credible result for the opposition. What is also interesting is that your number suggests that the UPA is crossing the 100 mark, which in some ways
could cross the 200 mark. Could cross the 200 mark if SP, BSP and Mamta come together with the Congress.
But I guess they may be forced to consider this, considering that individually they have not been able to stop the Modi juggernaut in many ways.
Mr. Mittal, jobs, price rise, farmer suicides remain the main challenges for this government. And in some senses, that's been constant. That's the way it was with the UPA. That's the way it's even now.
The job creation, which has been the fundamental challenge for the previous government and this government also. As I said, as the investments are flowing in, we believe that the job creation is going to start happening. Some impact did take place because of the two factors, as we said, but that is behind us. And as you heard, it's a long-term play. And I think for long-term sustainability of the investment coming into the country, you have to take some bold decisions. Maybe short-term you may take a hit. And that is what seems to have happened. So we will get that sorted out. Yes, agriculture is in a bit of stress, I have to say. And we believe that probably this budget one will have to see. There will be more resources allocated to the agriculture side. Agriculture will come back on the table. And to be honest, Indian agriculture needs to step up as far as the GDP and percentage of GDP is concerned. I'm sure because the people who are employed in the agriculture are far larger than what it contributes to the GDP. I'm certain that the government is seized of this and there will be some actions which probably we'll see during the next week budget when it is presented.
Okay, let's now come to the question of whether Achhe Din have come for the people. When respondents were asked, have Achhe Din come for you? It's very interesting that 39% of the respondents in this poll said that Achhe Din have come. Same conditions as before, say 14%. No Achhe Din, say 42%. Can't say is for. Suman Sinha is joining us now. 39% thinking that Achhe Din have arrived. That's not a bad number at all.
It's a pretty good number. I think most Indians are skeptics to some extent. So if 39% of them are saying that Achhe Din have arrived, and that's a job in progress, and I think seems to reflect that people are going to vote positively for the BJP.
Okay, let's now come to the issue of the handling of the economy. Do respondents feel that the UPA Sarkar was worse off when it comes to economics than the Modi government? Here is what the respondents said. 56% said that the Modi Sarkar is handling the economy better than the UPA. 16% said that the handling of the economy was the same as earlier. 21% said worse than the UPA, can't say was 6%. Mr. Mittal, 56% saying that the handling of the economy under Modi better than that of the UPA. Would you agree?
Well, this is a big number, I have to say. After 4 years, if this is the impression that we are gathering from the indices that you have just told us, that clearly tells you that what has been put in place is started showing results, and we are all hoping that in the coming days, this will even get better, especially for the middle SMEs, MSMEs. That's one area which needs probably more addressal, and that probably will happen as we go along. But 56% people, respondents, are saying this economy is done better. It's a great number.
Okay, so we've got lots of ministers of the Modi government here in Davos. I first want to go across to Dharmendra Pradhan, Petroleum Minister. He's here at Davos. I put him these questions. This is what he had to say about the numbers in the India Today Mood of the Nation opinion poll. In a moment from now, we'll have Kamal Nath. We'll also have Piyush Goyal live with us. But before that, here is Petroleum Minister Dharmendra Pradhan talking about the India Today Mood of the Nation opinion poll. Joining us now live in Davos to talk about the big India Today Karvi Mood of the Nation opinion poll is Petroleum Minister and one of the senior faces of the Modi government, Dharmendra Pradhan. We've pulled him out of his jam-packed schedule just for a quick moment. So, Minister, you know, the mood of the nation has both good news and bad news for the BJP. The good news, of course, is that if elections are held, the BJP, the NDA would win again. The bad news is you've slipped off the peak that you'd hit. Your peak was 360. India Today Karvi projecting that would come down now to 309.
Rahulji, I don't want to dispute with you on what kind of survey you have done. I respect your survey, but the surveys are with twofold strategies, objectivity and subjectivity. You have your own assessment. I don't want to dispute on that. But mood of the nation, the majority of the countrymen are now depending heavily, relying heavily on Prime Minister Modi's credibility. They are all rock solidly standing behind Prime Minister Modi.
There are a couple of interesting insights in the Mood of the Nation opinion poll. One, of course, is that post-Gujarat, people seem to be satisfied with the way GST is going. The problem, though, seems to be that when it comes to demonetization, and when people were asked, Minister, whether demonetization was more pain than gain, 73% felt it wasn't worth it. There was more pain. They haven't understood how they gain.
As I said, some part of subjectivity is there always in a survey. I don't want to answer in that way because after demonetization, so many elections were held. Whether it is Uttar Pradesh, whether it is some local election, whether it is recently held Gujarat and Himachal election. Bharatiya Janata Party continuously gaining the confidence of people with all such objectivity and subjectivity.
Okay, the key challenge, of course, seems to be jobs. Because when people were asked, has the Modi government been able to create jobs? 58% said no. 27% saying the situation is the same. Only 13% feel you've been able to give more jobs.
What do you mean by job? We have created employment opportunity, economic opportunity. Our spending from government treasury has increased. We have created a lot of policy reform, more investment. India is now the most favored FDI destination in the world. This investment has its logical impact in the ground. There may be some limitation in government jobs and some corporate jobs, but 9 crore people are beneficiary of Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana. More than 4 lakhs crore has been disbursed with a small amount of loan. More than 2.5 lakhs of stand-up loan, 2 focus group. One women and another group is SC and ST. They are now becoming job giver. So all this, previously Pradhan Mantri Yojana, Awas Yojana is known as Indra Awas Yojana. In Indra Awas Yojana days in the rural India, the only unit cost was only 75,000, 70,000. Now it is 1.5 lakhs. Where are the job is going? Where are the employment opportunities going? I'm confident there may be some formal calculation of whether government employment are increased or not, but I'm confident the economic opportunity in the country is increasing.
Also, Minister, when people were asked to point out what are the key challenges, people believe that essential commodities are getting costlier, lack of jobs remains a very important priority, and farmer suicide, again, one of the big concerns. Now, these are the kind of problems your government was elected to fix.
Rahulji, this problem were there. This problem are some of the problems are also there existing today. But after all such thing, all such challenge, people have immense faith in who can solve all these challenges, all these problems. It's only Prime Minister Narendra Modi, a decisive leader, a transparent leader, a dependable leader can bring out solution. That is today Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
That's correct, because the survey also shows that despite all the areas of concern which have been marked out in the survey, when people were asked who should be the next Prime Minister, more than 50% said they want Modi. The next candidate, Rahul Gandhi, had less than half that popularity.
I don't want to compare with this kind of answer in this kind of comparison, but I am confident. I am of this opinion. Today, Prime Minister Modi is highly rated, not only inside country, within the here we all are in Davos. 2 days back, Prime Minister Modi gave a fantastic speech to the world community. Today, due to transparency, due to his decisiveness, due to his visionary strategy, he is the dependable person within the country.
Okay, I'm going to leave it over there. You've got lots of meetings lined up. We won't hold you back. Thank you very much, Minister.
Thank you, Rahulji.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, joining us now at the World Economic Forum Congress is Senior Modi Minister Piyush Goyal. Minister, welcome and thank you for hopping out of a meeting and joining us here in the freezing cold. You've been enjoying this weather, heating it up with all the meetings?
Well, I think it was a great opportunity to tell the world what India is all about, show the world the big opportunity that awaits, new technology, new ideas, the rapid pace at which India is planning its scale up on investments, scale up on public services, and the response we've received has been just hugely fantastic.
We're talking here about the India Today Mood of the Nation opinion poll, coming out as it does right ahead of Republic Day. The good news from the BJP and the NDA's perspective is if elections are held today, the BJP NDA would win, crossing the 300 figure. The slightly disconcerting news is if the opposition comes together as one, if Mayawati, Akhilesh and Mamata Banerjee back Rahul Gandhi, then the going gets much tougher for the BJP. Do you see, with the Modi Sarkar doing as well as it is, opposition coming together against you?
Well, I wish them well. This country has seen such experiments in the past. We saw that very recently in Uttar Pradesh, where two of the principal parties came together. It only helped us get 80% of the seats in that state. The people see through these kind of unholy alliances which have no common consensus, no meeting ground. Parties which have been cursing each other, have been at the back of each other for years. In a very, for a very short-term, temporary period, getting together is something the people of India have rejected, not once, not twice, but if you look back, ever since 1980.
So on the one side, you've got the NDA crossing 300. The other reality is that you've got the NDA which had a peak of 360 in this Mood of the Nation opinion poll, now coming down about 57 seats from its peak. Would you read some trends into that?
Not at all. I would ask you to venture and look back. Which government at the end of the fourth year has ever had the kind of popularity ratings that Prime Minister Modi's government has had? Tell me any popular leader in probably the history of India who at the end of the fourth year, the slog was starting, has had a popularity which has kept growing month on month and year on year. I think times are good. In fact, if there is a grouping of all the opposition coming together, possibly we'll cross 400.
You think it'll actually make things better? Let's talk about some of the economic metrics, because especially on the back of Gujarat, we asked respondents whether they felt that the Gujarat victory validates GST. 47% said yes, no was 40%. When we asked them about demonetization, saying that is this more pain than gain, 73% saying this is more pain, 22% saying this is more gain. So on GST, Samir, there seems to be a resounding amount of approval for what the government has done. But on demonetization, people now wondering, kuch mila bhi, fayda hua bhi ki nahi?
See, again I said, she's into two, short-termism and long-termism. If we are standing 3 years from today, many people may feel very differently about demonetization. When more people come into the tax net, when there's a greater formal economy, there is more job security, there is more social security available because of the digital architecture that has been created, people may have a different take on demonetization. But on GST, clearly the numbers show that the people appreciate a tough decision, which may on the short term may not necessarily result in great political gains, but certainly they appreciate leadership. So let me go back to your number you mentioned. 56% have said that the Modi government has handled the economic policies well, which is slightly higher than Prime Minister's own personal approval rating this time around, which tells you that considering that these two tough decisions have been taken, there is still a huge swell of support on the economic policies. If there is something that we must ponder over, both as a political class and as thinkers, is that where is that dip coming from? Is it just incumbency, like he mentioned, the fourth year, end of the fourth year, where you're seeing a certain dip, or are there some other political questions that need responses? Because I think on the economic front, he has received the thumbs up from the survey.
Political questions you're talking about?
No, I'm not a political analyst, should be doing that, but clearly incumbency is one of them. And second, of course, I think there are local issues, and people respond to those local issues. And I don't think this opinion poll would necessarily capture a trend, but it would be an aggregation of multiple trends across geographies.
So, Minister, on GST, you've got people backing you. On demonetization now, 73%. If you compare this with the earlier poll, where demonetization got a thumbs up, now people are wondering whether they actually benefited. Is the government losing the narrative on the benefits of demonetization?
Absolutely not. As Samir said, we are very clear, we are on the right path. At Davos, people have been appreciating the bold moves for bringing India into a formal economy, for eliminating corruption, black money, issues by which India had come to be identified through the years of Congress rule, so many years. And I think finally they're seeing a government which means to change that narrative, which means to demonstrate that we are for honest government. And I think even if in the short run some people are not able to understand the long-term impact and benefits of this, we are clear, we will stay the course. We are looking at a larger digitalization and formalization of the economy. We are looking to relentlessly go after black money and corruption. And we are extremely confident that the people of India know that this is good for them. They will back the Prime Minister as they have backed him in election after election. And you will note that we have finally broken the jinx that governments post-introduction of GST have consistently worldwide lost the next election. Mr. Modi has broken that jinx. We've thrown the Congress out of Himachal. We've won back Gujarat. For 30 years we've been winning elections there now. 22 years of government. And I think it once and for all shows that if you are honest in your intention, the people trust you, home run for you.
Mr. Mittal, on the question of which are the biggest achievements of the Prime Minister, the Swachh Bharat campaign seems to be coming in at number one. I met somebody from the toilet board and they were talking about the problems of the Swachh Bharat campaign, how a lot more needed to be done and issues still hadn't been resolved. And the crackdown on black money, which is coming in at 17%, we're ironically in Switzerland, where Rahul Gandhi has been tweeting and saying, kuch paisa wapas bhi leke aao, nothing's come back yet. Yet that in public perception are the two biggest achievements of the Modi Sarkar.
Credit to the Prime Minister when he spoke from the ramparts of Red Fort. People said, this is a very small issue. Why should Prime Minister of the country pick this issue up on this particular day? To be honest, his clarion call has actually pushed people to think. It's a mindset, it's been a successful campaign. Corporates have done it, we have done it, he's appreciating it. I think more and more people should come and do that. It's just not Swachh Bharat for the toilets. It leads to hygiene, healthcare, nutrition. There are so many issues that are intertwined and interlinked. People must understand that. And it's big achievement. On the black money and what has been said by the respondents, people want that. People want an honest government. People want an honest business sense of the country, the reputation of the country. And I think the crackdown will not only is again a midterm.
There's corporates that deal a lot with governments and bureaucracy. To what extent do you think the levels of corruption have fallen? No, I don't have to diplomatically by the honourable ministers here, but let me say that
From the central government point of view, I can tell you there is a gap which I can't even tell you how much has been as a perception turned around, as it is turned around. There is no question of that. Yes, state governments need to also rise to the occasion. Local governments need to rise to the occasion. It's a daisy chain where the impact comes, but it's a slow process, it's a trickle process. But from the top when it starts, it will start trickling down.
Sumant Sinha, your sense on...
I'll just interject a small anecdote. This is about 2012 or thereabouts. My wife was traveling in a taxi, and the taxi driver asked for a fare which was about 50 rupees more than the actual fare. And she said, "Arey, itna maang rahe ho, itna to banta nahi hai is raste ka." The taxi driver said, "Mem sahab, 50 rupees to zyada maang raha hu, koile ki khadan thodi maang raha hu." That was the mood of the nation. That has changed today. Today nobody can, everything is through a transparent process. Sumant has been at the receiving end. He's had runaway success in his renewable energy business. Everything transparent, open, equal opportunity for all. So that's the change, what he talked about, perception and reality, both.
Sumant, to what extent do you believe in interactions with various levels of government and bureaucracy, have corruption levels actually come down?
To the point that Minister was making earlier, I think, having much more transparent allocation of natural resources, whether it's PPAs, mines, etc., spectrum, I think that's made a humongous change, because even though it's very difficult sometimes to compete and so on, but the reality is we know that for the long term, nobody can raise any issues in the future. Governments may change, political parties may change, but I think in the long term, nobody can point fingers at this. So I think is very, very critical, and I think it's very healthy for the economy as a whole as well. So I think that there's nothing wrong with it. I think the government is going down the right path. In terms of your question on corruption, at the central government level, certainly, there is no whiff of anything that we can see. At the state level, certainly also it's improving, because there's a lot of competition happening among the various states themselves. And I think therefore they also have to come across very differently from the way they would come across earlier. So I think that there's been a fairly significant change, I think, in the overall philosophy in the environment. And the one thing that, if I may suggest to the government, that still needs to be changed, I think, is the issue of political funding. I think if that is, if that area can be reformed even further, I know the government is making, efforts in that direction, and that finally will, in some ways, also make a big change. So I think that is the only area, perhaps, that I can only suggest an improvement in.
Okay, so we've heard from Dharmendra Pradhan, we are hearing from Piyush Goyal, we've got senior industry veterans, analysts with us. We'll also hear what the opposition has to say. Long-time Davos veteran, Congress stalwart Kamal Nath will be joining us. What we'll do is take a very quick break. We'll continue this India Today Mood of the Nation opinion poll, the big takeaways from Davos, and what would happen if elections are held today. Our coverage continues on the other side of a very quick break. Stay with us.
Thanks for watching the video. For more such news and updates, please like, share and subscribe to India Today. Also check out our other great videos from our channel. We know you will love to.